Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Hope. My name is Tammy Lynn Connors. This is my YouTube channel and podcast, helping other people evolve. Today, I have the honor to have Toriano and Susan with me. They came all the way from Findlay, and if you guys don't know where that is, it's about 45 minutes from here, hour. Yeah, so thankful for that. Sorry, I gotta do my watch real quick. There. Anyways, you guys, thank you so much. I enjoy doing this so much because I get to share so many stories of hope. And that is what this is all about. My vision and mission when I started this was just to help people that felt like they're alone in their struggles. I think since 2020, especially, there's so many people at home and they feel like all their struggles are by themselves. And when I have people like Toriano and Susan share their stories, it shows you that you're not alone in your struggle. You know, we all go through struggles, but some of us get to a strength. And that's what this whole purpose is, just to let you know that I know the struggles are hard, but you can turn them around and get to a strength, no matter what it is that you go through. So I'm super excited. I met them through my workout coach, DeAndre, and I'm super excited to hear your story. I know that it's a good, powerful story. It's a redemption story for sure. So I guess we'll start, like, where did you grow up and things like that?
Yep. So originally born in Pennsylvania, Meadville, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
A real small town. Probably the whole town could probably fit in this room.
Okay.
You know, real small. And my mother was born in the same hospital. I was born in the same hospital as my mother. And this is how small the town was and how long we've been there. And it was a great atmosphere, just small town Americana. It's just apple pie and hot dogs.
Okay.
It was great. And there came a time where my mother moved to Cleveland, Ohio.
Okay.
And when she moved to Cleveland, Ohio, she left my sister and I with my grandmother.
Okay.
Until she got herself established in Cleveland. Then she would send for us. And it was at the same time that my mother's sister, my Aunt Avon, she moved to Michigan. And she did the same thing when she was establishing herself. She left her children there with my grandmother, so my cousins. And so we all grew up in the same house. And so it was a lot of us. And so it was fun. It was the greatest days of my life, you know, just wonderful. And then there came a time where my mother, she sent for us to come to Cleveland. She's ready, she's established. And really, that's where life really changed for me, because the city of Cleveland was major metropolitan. There's totally day and night difference between Cleveland, Ohio, and Meadville, Pennsylvania. And so my mother, she really, and she talks about this some when she tells her story about she transitioned from a small town country girl to this big city, and so yeah, so she was very attractive young lady and with big eyes, and anytime she used to say that, you know, a man would look at her and tell her that she was cute, you know, that meant something.
Oh yeah.
You know? So at that time, my mother, she began to get caught up in the nightlife of Cleveland.
Okay.
And so she got heavily involved with drugs and things like that. And so my father, he was never in the picture. My mother and my father, they got divorced when I was very, very young. Okay. And so I never met my father. I spoke with him once in my life on the telephone. And we arranged to speak again, but he died a year later at that point. And so we never met, you know, we never met. So only talked to him one time, but it was that one time that he told me that I had other brothers and sisters.
Oh, okay.
And so I still have not met my brothers and sisters. And so I have brothers and sisters that I've never met.
Do you know how many?
No, don't know how many. Only thing that I know is that that I'm the oldest.
Okay.
And then my sister, and then these other siblings.
Okay.
And so I don't know how many actually it is. So that's always been something that weighs on me and I think about considerably. And every time I see someone with the same last name, I always wonder.
Yeah.
Well, that could be my brother, that could be my sister. And so growing up in Cleveland.
How old were you when your mom like established herself and then you went to Cleveland?
So maybe about 10, 11 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
age 10, 11,
Mhm.
we moved to Cleveland, and my sister and I, we came to stay with my mother there.
Okay,
And it was a whole lot different, whole lot more fast paced and things like that. And so that's we got um, exposed to drugs,
Okay.
exposed to heavy drinking, and my sister and I, we had a babysitter, and our babysitter molested both my sister and I,
wow.
and she introduced us to cocaine.
Mm,
And so we're in elementary school,
Oh
my
my
sister
goodness.
and I, and we do cocaine every weekend. And so it was that was our introduction.
Shoot.
And so it was pretty scarring,
Yes,
it was pretty traumatic, experience for that. And so even to this day, my sister, she still struggles with drug addiction. Yeah, she still struggles with drug addiction, and she has some a few psychological issues and mental health issues
Yeah.
that I know are foundational to her early life.
sure.
And
sure.
so we grew up in that
Can
environment.
I stop that real
Yeah,
quick
yeah.
right there? Because I was just talking to Coach Pooh DeAndre about this today. The things that happen to us when we're young like that, because he said something about, I said something about getting, oh, he said, did you ever do sports at all? And I had rheumatic heart fever when I was young. And so I was in the hospital and I weighed like 95 pounds when I went in, and I weighed like 135 when I came out. And I said, that's when the bullying started. And he was like, bullying? You were bullied? And I was like, oh, so bad. And it's probably been 7 years since I've been able to just work through all of that. So people don't realize, especially with younger people, when you're saying things to these kids or doing things to kids, how it affects them later in life, if they don't get the help and things like that. And so I can relate to your sister and you too, 100% on all that. But I just wanted to throw that out there because it just came into my head then when we were talking.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I think that's important because today, as a pastor, very recently I was preparing a sermon, and the sermon foundationally dealt with Jesus and his disciples coming across this man who had been blind since his birth.
Mhm.
And the disciples, being part of the Jewish community at that time, believed that any type of physical infirmity that you had was a result of some sort of sinfulness.
Mhm.
And because he was blind since his birth, the disciples want to know who sinned.
Mm,
Did he sin in the womb
right.
to earn this, or did his parents do something that he would have this infirmity of blindness? And Jesus responded and said, no, neither him nor his parents sinned. He said, but that the glory of God should manifest.
Mm,
And so sometimes even today, I look back on my life, or it could be something going on in your life right now. You say, why is this happening to me? What did I do to deserve this?
Right.
And oftentimes there's a built-in power that's going to result from this.
Yes.
Everything has a purpose, it has a reason. And so I think that what we do best for each other is to help us to discover what strength and what power we can get out of an infirmity that we're suffering from. But I believe it goes back with being honest about our past.
Right.
Yeah. And understanding that it's not your fault.
Right. That's huge.
Because you can just blame yourself,
Yeah.
and I've done that. I think
Yeah.
people do it all the time. You blame yourself for your trauma or what you may have suffered, but there's a purpose for that. There's a purpose that can be gained and a power that can be produced.
Yes, exactly.
And so I think that's important.
Yeah, and you said that, and it's funny because he said to me, if those things wouldn't have happened to you, do you think you'd be the same that you are today? And I was like, no, those things happened to me. That's why I am who I am today, And I just posted that the other day. I would never take, not a lot of the struggles I didn't want to go through, but I would never get rid of them because that is who made me today, and God got me through every time. He lifted me up and carried me.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay. So now probably 12, 13 now?
Yeah,
Okay.
12, 13. And so the neighborhood that we lived in, it was, you were going to join as a young boy, you were going to join that neighborhood gang.
Okay,
And you joined the gang, out of a sense of belonging.
okay,
I
right.
think, you definitely joined for protection.
Mhm.
And, I believe that, one, factor that united, all the young boys was fatherlessness.
Right.
None of the boys that I grew up with had a father that was present in their life. And so I think that that is something that drew us together too, a camaraderie,
Yeah.
understanding. I think that it's our universal hurt
Mhm.
that brought us together, and you began to establish, unfortunately, with a boyhood mentality, what manhood is, or what you think it should
Right,
be.
right.
And so being a man is fighting, being a man is never crying, being a man is this, being a man is boyhood fantasy.
Right,
And so, of course, we understand that's not to be manhood at all.
right.
And so, in fact, it only causes hurt and harm.
Mhm.
And so, but this was the gang in my neighborhood that I grew up in. And so, running with those guys, searching for a sense of belonging, a sense of self-worth, doing anything that I could to show my appreciation for this brotherhood, if you will. And so, we do all kind of things, just led to a lot of delinquent behavior. And so I was in and out of the, youth detention facilities and group homes and foster homes. In fact, when I began school in kindergarten, until I eventually just dropped out of school in the 10th grade, I never went to the same school twice. And so that gives you a little understanding of me moving around a lot. And so it was either a group home, a foster home, a family member, a juvenile detention facility. So I didn't understand, it didn't have stability, consistency.
Right.
And so there was no foundation to be built. And so one of the things that affects me today is that I have to be cognizant of being committed. Because I'm so used to not committing myself to something that was fluid.
Right, right. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, something
For
that was
sure.
fluid. And so I have to have a concerted effort to commit myself to something, to someone. And so that's the one thing you have to be mindful of. I think that comes with knowing you. But once again, that goes back to addressing and being honest about where you come from.
For sure.
I like that illustration of going to the mall or the fair or somewhere where they have a kiosk with a map on it when you're lost. And they have those 3 words and that big red X that says you are here.
Yeah.
Because you have to know where you are in proximity to where you want to go.
That's good.
If you don't know where you are, then you're just traveling in circles.
Yes.
And so I think it's important to know who you are as a person, the good, the bad, the ugly, the strengths of who you are, the weaknesses of who you are. I think you have to understand that. I think you have to acknowledge that. I think you have to accept it. And I think that that's what opens a roadmap to the goals of where you want to be. Professionally, intellectually, spiritually, emotionally, what have you. So I think being honest about who you are currently, where you come from, is the only thing that opens up to where you're going. And so I remember there was this one instance where my mother, at this time, she had come home one day and she says, I'm saved. And I didn't have a clue what she was talking about. Saved from what? From who? What's going on? She said, no, I met the Lord Jesus Christ and he saved my soul. And we're like, oh, here she goes. Oh, wow, she's one of those people now. So by this time, my sister and I, we were full-blown drug addicts. alcoholics. We had gotten high, gotten drunk with our mother. In fact, my mother told me one time, she said she didn't have a real good relationship with her mother. And so she wanted a relationship with us. She didn't want to be our mother. She wanted to be our friend. And so that's we became friends, you know, and so we did what friends do together,
Right.
you know.
Yeah.
Friends allow, especially immature friends,
Mhm.
allow your weaknesses to be your strength. They ignore
Yeah.
the negative things about who you are and highlight the things of more what you want to be than who you actually are.
Right.
So it wasn't a good, healthy relationship. And so when my mother came and she said, well, I don't drink anymore, I don't use drugs, I don't, and she didn't. I'm telling you, she had a radical change in her
Nice.
life. And she wanted that for her children,
Mhm.
understandably, but we were like, you know, get that
Right.
this stuff out of here. And I remember that one Wednesday afternoon, I woke up and I had this overwhelming internal compulsion to just get up, bathe, and go to church. And so this was so crazy and so foreign. It would have been tantamount to aliens walking through the door
Okay.
and saying, come with me, I'm taking you to our mothership.
Okay.
It was the exact same feeling, you know,
Oh.
like, this is crazy. But the only thing crazy was I started doing it.
Okay.
You know, I started bathing and I got dressed and so I'm going to church. I didn't know any churches, you know, and so, oh, boy, that one my mother's been talking about. And I walked into that church, it was so funny because when I walked in, there was a small group of people that were gathered at the front of the church. And there was a man, he was the pastor, and he was teaching. And so this is what I would later know to be midweek Bible study.
Okay. Yeah.
And so,
Wednesday nights.
yeah. And so my mother was just happened to be looking around casually. And she seen me in the back pew sitting there, and her eyes, like, I gave her a look like, hey, calm down.
Right.
I'll leave out of here. And so it's funny because the pastor asked the group there if anyone had any prayer requests or any praise reports and want to celebrate what God has done. And so my mother said, oh, and she said, well, the Lord, he helped me pay some bills and my brakes were bad on my car. He helped me with that. And he brought my boy in here. There you go. So everybody turning around trying to get a look, you know, and I'm like, I want this.
I bet. And how old were you then, do you think?
Yeah, so at this point, I'm 21 years old.
Okay.
Just turned 21.
Okay.
Yeah, just turned 21. And so the pastor did something that was not traditionally done, and he made an altar call.
Okay.
He asked anyone who wanted to give their life to Jesus Christ to come down first. So he's talking to me. I'm
Right. You're the only one there that has it, right?
Right. So the same internal compulsion that brought me to the church, it rose up and was compelling me to go down front, go down. But I dug my heels in.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going. And then it's like I made a deal with God. You know, you make a deal.
Oh yeah, I've made plenty of them.
Oh God, if you get me out of this.
If you want, I will stop drinking if I quit puking, please.
Yes.
I don't know how many times I made
Yeah,
that.
room spinning,
Oh,
yeah.
goodness.
Just,
Yeah.
so made a deal with God, you know, that I wasn't going down, but I'll come back Sunday. I'll come back Sunday. And so internal compulsion subsided. So I took that, okay, we got a deal, God.
Right.
I'll be back Sunday. And so I didn't go down, you know, I left the church, but I was gonna come back, keep my word Sunday. And so the Saturday before that Sunday, I was involved in a gang shoot.
Okay.
And one guy was killed, another guy was paralyzed. And I was arrested, convicted, sentenced to prison, 20 years to life. And so it was just, my life was over.
Right.
And I remember as I was going through the initial process of being arrested, I told my mom, I said, I need a lawyer, I need an attorney. She said, I'll get you a lawyer. I said, okay. And so she came down and she had this man with her, and it was the pastor from the church.
That's not a lawyer.
I thought to myself, I said, he's a lawyer too?
Right.
Real Renaissance.
Right,
man.
right.
And so he sat down and started explaining the case and what I thought we should. He said, I'm not a lawyer. So what you doing here? You know, he said, your mother, you know, she called me, she thought I could be like, you can't help me.
Right.
And he prayed for me that first day, he spoke with me that first day, and he came back and he visited just about every day for the next 30 years that I will remain in prison.
So you were there for 30 years?
For 30 years, for 30 years. My sentence was 20 years to life. And so, of course, you had to do a minimum of 20 years.
Right.
Because there was a gun involved, that was an extra 3 years. So you had to do a minimum of 23 years. And then they would begin to consider whether they if you were suitable for release. The Adult Parole Authority, Ohio Adult Parole Authority. And so the first time I went to the parole board, they were giving out what they call these super flops. And so guys were going to the parole board and they were receiving additional time. Guys were coming back with, I got 15 more years, I got 20 more years. Wow. And so when I go to parole board, I'm begging God. I said, God, just let me get 5 years.
Right.
You know, just 5 or something. And so I went and I got 6 years. I was so grateful. I was so happy because God was getting 20 years. And so during those 6 years, there was this popular pastor in Cleveland who came to the prison. And so the prison was just in an uproar about this pastor coming in, you know, and they said, you going? You know, it's like it was a rock concert or something, right. You know? Yeah. I said, yeah, I guess. Right. It was just. What else you gonna do, right? Yeah, it's a popular thing to do. And I remember going in there and sitting down and the prison men's choir, they began to sing and they were playing instruments. And this was my first time listening to gospel music. And so the music began to have an effect on me emotionally. I said, wow, that's nice. And then they started singing an original song called Will You Trust Me? And so the gentleman who was the lead singer, his lyrics were like God talking to people. And he asked the question, will you trust me? And then the choir, they all said yes, or resounding yes, like yes. And it was just so powerful listening to these men who were like yes. And then they played another song. Oh wow. And they played another song and it had this funky bass line. And that's when I said, wow, that's nice. Right? And then I found out years later that it was an artist named William Murphy. And he was a part of a group called Shekinah Glory. And the name of the song is called Praise Is What I Do. I praise God. That's just simply what I do. And I just said, wow, I really like this song. And I closed my eyes. And that's something that you don't do in prison for a significant amount of time. It puts you in a very vulnerable position. Right. You always have to watch what's going on around you, what's happening, what's going on. But I just have my eyes closed. Totally just transfixed, translated. You know, it's like I was being taken to another place. And the pastor came and he began to preach, and he preached out of the book of Acts, the 16th chapter, about Paul and Silas being placed, not just in jail, but the scripture says in the inner prison. And I said, I said, you were in prison? I'm in prison. Right. I said, they were in the inner prison, like segregation. I said, I've been in segregation. So there's a God who comes to segregation that'll come to the whole. And so that really resonated with me, you know. And so I said, I want to give my life to this God. I want to give my life, you know. And so I told my mother, I said, Mom, I want to get saved. And of course, she was just ecstatic, you know. Sure. She was just so happy. And so I got saved. And I really wish that I could tell you that everything went wonderful from there, but I was really just a Christian in name, didn't really much change in my life,
Right.
You asked me, I said, yeah, I'm a Christian,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
a drinking Christian.
Right, right, right.
I get high, God loves me,
Right, exactly.
He wants me happy.
Exactly, that's what he wants me happy.
Yeah.
Real quick, I want to go back
Yeah.
a little bit. When you got sentenced and went to prison, did you like get in gangs when you first got back when you got in prison? And then too, did you like try to fit in there like that?
Yeah. Yeah. So when I go into the prison, every people that I knew from my life was there, from the juvenile detention facility. Now they're in prison. Guys from my neighborhood, from different neighborhoods, this is where they all go. This is where we go. And so it was a reunion of sorts. And so inside of the prison, particularly in Ohio State prison at that time, that guys were separated by cities.
Okay.
And so all the guys really separated themselves by cities.
Okay.
And so each city was a gang, if you will.
Gotcha.
So I seen a friend of mine, a close friend of mine from my neighborhood. In fact, it was my sister's ex-boyfriend.
Okay.
We had all went to school together. So when I seen him, that was a really close relationship. And we were already affiliated with the same gang outside. And so we really bonded and got close together, and so he introduced me to other people. Yeah, this is this, and we together, and so definitely did that. That was a place of comfort,
Right.
A sense of it gave me a sense of comfort, because you going into prison, you say, you know what, I ain't no punk, ain't nobody gonna do nothing to me, I ain't, And so you have a group of guys that say, yeah, ain't nobody gonna mess with you, they mess with me, and and so it was definitely a lot of that. And so when I gave my life to the Lord, that really set me on a search.
Okay.
I really wanted to I had a sense that there was more to life than my existence. And when I say my existence, I didn't even so much mean my physical existence. I knew there was more to life than prison.
Right.
But I had a sense that there was more to who I was in my individual existence. There was a depth to who I was that I wanted to discover that connected with God. And so I began a spiritual journey. And so the friend of mine who I met, he was observing Muslim.
Okay.
So he introduced me to Islam.
Okay.
And so in Islam, it's really a work-based religion. The more you do, the more you get. You earn your way. If you pray, you get. If you pray extra, if you fast, if you do this, if you do that. And so I was engaged in that, and I would do more and more and more, trying to experience God, but I wasn't experiencing God.
Okay.
The more I did, I wasn't experiencing God, and I really wanted to experience God. And so I kind of drifted away from that, and that's what led me to that church service, the one with the pastor that came in. I said, well, let me try this, my mother, and I had an experience. I had a spiritual experience, I had an encounter. And so, and that was it for that, I just wanted more of that. And so as this Christian in name only, still engaged in activities, drug deals, smoking deal. I got involved in a deal that went wrong and got stabbed in prison. There was a hit put out on me in prison. I got stabbed up pretty bad. And so that's when I committed my life to Christ. I realized I don't want to die in prison. I want more life. I want to live. I want more God. I want more God outside of these walls. And so I became sincere in my faith walk, and I committed myself to God in that moment in the best way I know. I said, I give you all of me, in the understanding that I had of what giving all meant. But it reminded me of a little kid living with my mother back in Pennsylvania.
Mhm.
And I remember on Saturday mornings, my sister and I would get up and we eat cereal, watching Looney Tunes.
Right.
And my mother would get up a little later and put us out the house because she would do Saturday cleaning.
Mhm.
And so I remember she would turn Soul Train on.
Oh, yeah.
Soul
Oh,
Train
yeah.
to come on.
Yeah.
They came on like 10, 11 o'clock in the morning or something like that. So she would turn that on and be cleaning the house. And one of the things she always did was took the couch cushions off the couch
Mhm.
because stuff falls
Sure.
down in there, keys, candy, jelly beans.
Right.
And I used to always still eat the jelly beans. So I said, oh, they're still good,
Good.
and I would still eat the jelly bean. And that image came to my mind when I thought about committing myself to the Lord, is that you have to do a self-cleaning and examination of your life daily.
That's huge.
Because stuff falls through the cushions of your life. And everything looks right. But if you dig and investigate, there's something that fell between the crack that you need to clean up.
Ooh, that's good.
And so I keep that's instantly came into my thought at that time, and it stayed with me even to this day. That you have to do self-examination about the things you may have lost that you're unaware of. And so you have to get between those cushions.
That is really good. That's
So
powerful.
I think about that even to this day. And that's how that was my foundation I began to build upon.
Okay.
And everything was great. I began to grow, the Lord began to bring people into my life. So much so that I was transferred. I wanted to go to a particular institution that was closer to Cleveland. And so after the staffing, they said, we'll send you,
Right.
I want to go here. And so they said, okay, we're sending you there. And then when it was time to do the move, the day of the move, I see my package, my box, where you got all your belongings packed up in what they call a 2.4 box. It's a box that's 2 feet by 4 feet.
Okay.
And every worldly possession you have is inside
Okay.
this 2.4 box. And on there has the name, it has Marion Correctional Institution. So I'm not going to Marion Correctional Institution, I'm going to Grafton. They said, no, you're going to Marion. And so I put up such a fuss. They said, well, wait a minute. Let's go check and make sure.
Right.
I said, no, you're going to Marion. I couldn't believe it. I said, this is terrible. And so I go there. And when I go there, the Lord had everything set up for me there. The first person I met that would instruct me systematically in the study of the Bible, he was there. The chaplain of the institution was there, who was perfectly fit for me. His name was Dr. Murphy R. Coley, Reverend Dr. Murphy R. Coley. And he's been a mentor and a fixture in my life. And he just showed me so much what it means to be a Christian man and how to conduct yourself and how to open yourself up to God. And there came a point where in Finley, there's the Weinberger Theological Seminary.
Okay.
And they said, you know what, we have a radical idea. We want to, there's so many prison ministries that go in there, minister to the men, and then they leave, And I always had a problem with ministries that would come in, and so many of them would share with us the story of Joseph. And say, you're Joseph, you're like Joseph.
Right.
But it never resonated with me. I said, I'm not like Joseph. Joseph was a good man. Joseph was a righteous man. I said, I'm the thief on the cross. That's who I am. Who turned to Jesus, acknowledged, listen, I'm a thief. I deserve to be here. I deserve to be in prison. And for this crime and for crimes you don't have any clue about.
Right.
Don't tell me I'm good and I'm righteous. Don't do that. And so so with so many ministries that would do that, but they said, you know what, let's go in here and give these men who have given their life to Christ, and let's refine their emotions and theological excitement with a theological education. Let's refine them and then dispatch them to the darkest corners of the prison, where even the guards don't go, and let them minister the gospel. And so,
can I stop you real quick?
Yeah.
Wait, what was I gonna ask you about? Darn it. Go ahead, keep talking, I forgot. Darn it. It's okay, I'll remember.
Yeah,
So if I stop you quick, it's because I remembered.
okay, that's cool, yeah.
Oh, no, I know what it was now.
Okay.
When you talk about, you're supposed to go to the one prison and then you're gonna go to Marion, and how many times in our life does that happen? Like, we're like, no, that's not what I wanted to do. That's not where I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And then everything just kind of falls into place the way that it's supposed to. You know, we battle it, we battle it, we battle it. And then when you get to where you're at, then you're like, oh, I'm supposed to be here. That's why that happened.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's a hard thing for people, because it's that struggle, like, but that's not what I want,
Yeah.
you know, and God's like, but it is what you want. You just don't know it yet.
Just don't know it
Yeah,
yet.
yeah,
And it's hard, it's difficult for someone to tell you that you don't, that you don't know what
Right,
you want,
right.
what you need.
right, yeah,
You know, I'm gonna tell me what I need
Right.
in my life.
right,
You know,
right.
and you don't have this existence, you know, you don't feel the things that I'm feeling.
Right.
You haven't been exposed to the things I've been exposed to. I know what I need. you
Right.
know, So,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I just wanted to point that out, because I think
That's a
that's
good
pretty
thing.
powerful, because when you said that, I was like, yeah, I get it, you know, there's been times when I'm like, no, I'm not doing that, and I'm like, okay, I did it, and now I know why, you know, so. Okay, so now you're
And
gonna
Mary,
start ministering, right? Is that
yeah,
what's gonna happen
yeah,
now?
yeah.
Okay.
And so, working out of the Department of, I'm working out of the Department of, Religious Services.
Okay.
Going to school, taking courses with the Weinberg Theological Seminary. And so one of my duties working religious services is to invite in, ministries to come into the prison.
Okay,
And so when I was first given this responsibility, I didn't really know any ministries. You know, I didn't come from church. Some of my mom's church, I was like my mother's church.
yeah,
And so I did, and their pastor very enthusiastic, Pastor Michelle Moore, and she said that, oh yes, we'd love to come. You know, we bring all the saints, and originally she wanted to bring like 200 people with her. You know, they said you can't. That's too many people.
That's way too many people,
Yeah,
right?
She said you can all come, but it won't be any inmates there.
Right,
you know,
right.
Take all the people.
Right.
And so they settled on her bringing in about 25 people,
okay,
which is still a lot.
that's a lot,
you know,
right? Yeah,
But it was great. And so they came in, and and so they introduced me to everyone. I was the, like the go-between.
Right.
So meeting everyone. And one of the women that came in, she asked me, Toriano, come here, so I come over. She said, do you have any gum? I said, no, I don't have any gum, but I wanted to find her. So she was cute. We found her some gum. And so there's a guy who had some gum, and a stick of gum, but had been torn in half. Because guys will take their gum, they'll tear it in half, chew half now, chew half later, try to preserve the gum, because
Sure.
you don't go to the store whenever you want.
Right,
You
right.
go once a week, maybe 2-3 times a month.
Right.
So I took her this half a stick of gum. She looked at this gum like I got it, like I got it off the bottom of a desk or something. Like, chew this.
right.
And so she took it, and showed it to the lady sitting next to her, like, look what he gave me. And she was polite. She said, thank you. So they got up, and I never forget, they sang, and it was just amazing. It was just amazing. They were just so gifted, so talented, so anointed. And so the spiritual anointing that they sang with had such a profound effect on not only me, but all the men that were in attendance. I remember after the service that there were men who were still milling around the hallway asking each other, did you feel that? Did you feel that?
Yeah, that was so
So
good.
it was just something.
Yes.
And so sometime later, I said maybe 5-6 years later, my mother said that one of the women who were at the service said she had asked. I said she's always asking, how are you doing? Are you okay? And and she asked, would you like a pen pal? I said, sure.
Sure.
And so we began to write, and I don't remember who this was, I couldn't put a face with it, but the Lord had a face in my mind that, and so we were riding, and I asked her, "Can you send me a picture?" And she was like, "What you want a picture of me for?" Like, "You want a picture so I can see you."
So I can see who you are.
Yeah. And so she sent me a picture, and it was the woman that the Lord had put in my mind.
Mm.
It was and so we began to write. It was just wonderful, talking about the Lord, and it was just holy. Yeah.
Were you the happiest stick to go?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we started corresponding and visiting, and I got very scared.
Mm.
I'm very apprehensive because this would have been the first relationship that I've had with a woman as a saved man. I didn't have any ulterior motive. It was pure, and so I didn't want to mess it up.
Right. Yeah.
Guys, they dumb. We like to think we smart. We are probably in a lot of ways, but very emotionally unsophisticated.
Right.
And so when you're unfamiliar with something, you're very clumsy with it. And so I was very nervous, and I didn't want to mess up. And so I said, you know what, I'm just going to ask her something, and I asked her, would she marry me?
Through the pen pal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said, she'll never do it. I'm going to ask her something crazy. She'll never do that. But the only crazy thing was, she said, yes, I will.
Oh my goodness.
And so I understood that before. I would have thought that, oh, she married me because I'm just so handsome, and she married me because I'm so smooth, and she married me, and when I was in such a great shape, she just married me because of my body, but.
And that penmanship, let me tell you.
Yeah, that penmanship. It's all of those reasons.
Right.
I would have thought, but I understood that she wasn't even saying yes to me, that as a result of her own personal relationship with the Lord, that she was saying yes to the Lord. It was the Lord that was asking her to marry me. And so the Bible tells us that a man who finds a wife gets two things. It says that he finds a good thing, and I always like and to get bored, and he gets favor from the Lord. And so the wife Susan became such a good thing in my life.
Yeah.
Such a good thing in my life to this day. Such a wonderful good thing in my life, and it's given me favor with the Lord. And I found favor with God in so many different ways, and so it's true. And so we married, and
so did you get married? You were in prison when okay. They did a ceremony there?
Yep, did a ceremony there. So how that goes is they do weddings on Mondays.
Okay.
And so they give you, you have to get your marriage license, and you get all of that. Then you set dates.
Okay.
And so they said, these are available Mondays. And so Susan, she does not drive very well. She doesn't enjoy driving in inclement weather, snow, rain. So the earlier the better. The first available Monday.
Right.
And so the first available Monday was October 31st.
Oh, Halloween.
Yeah. And so we got married there, and so the pastor that visited me throughout those years, he did the ceremony. My mother, she was a witness to the ceremony, and Dr. Kohler, who was a chaplain at that time, my friend and my mentor, he was there to oversee it. And so I'm so nervous, I said, hold on, I use the bathroom. So I go to the bathroom. When I come back from the bathroom, I'm looking for Susan. I don't see her anywhere. She's in the back of the chapel because Dr. Kohler is going to walk her down the aisle. And that's what he did. He walked her down the aisle and gave her away. Yeah.
And so, okay, I should have had tissues.
He's still in our life today.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
so
oh yeah, he's still
awesome.
in our life, very much so today.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it was just such a beautiful and wonderful day. And yeah, we got married, and I was a married man, and so I felt a sense of completion.
Mhm.
I felt like there was something that was completed in me,
Right,
both on my life, but in me too, you know. And so everything, so much changed in that moment.
sure.
And it was great. It was awesome.
Now, what year was this that you guys got married?
2016.
2016.
Yeah. And so I go to the parole board the next year,
Mhm.
which is 2017.
Mhm.
And so because of my record at that point, my involvement, my good conduct, I knew I was getting a parole.
Mhm.
I just felt it.
Mhm.
And so when I go to the parole board and I come back and the case manager informs me, said, you got a parole, they approved your parole. You know, it wasn't a surprise to me,
Right.
you know, and so I was giving God the glory. And so I went to call my mother, but we called Susan, you know. I dialed her number so much, you
Right,
know,
right.
that I just instinctively called her number. So I told her, I said, I have parole, you know. And it was a celebratory moment. I called my mother, you know, celebratory moment. And so the next day you go get your official paperwork, you know, and so I'm beaming, I'm walking,
Right.
you know, I'm walking like George Jefferson, you
Right,
know.
right. Here I go.
Yeah,
Moving on.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
And I get the paper and it said that I did not have a parole.
Ugh.
Ouch. I said, no, so I put up a fuss, you know,
Right.
I can put up a fuss. And so he said, oh, let me check. I go back in there, come back out. I said, Henry, I said, yes. 241-405. I said, yes. He said, yeah, you don't have a parole.
Oh,
In fact, you have 3 more years.
oh.
And I said, oh, no. And so, you know, you're talking about the wind out of your sails, you know, and so I'm just driftwood. And so I call Susan and I tell her, and she's silence, you know, I said, you there?
Told him the wrong Henry.
Yeah, they said, sorry, we had the wrong. And so she said it felt like a gut punch.
Oh, I bet.
And it was, and real hurtful not to tell my mother because she couldn't understand. And so I had to keep telling her over and over again. And so when I would tell her, she would say, okay. So they got you confused with the other guy. So the other guy is getting out when you get out? I said, no, Ma, I'm not getting out. They made a mistake. Okay. So he's gonna get out, then they're gonna let you out. I said, no, Mom. I said, just listen. And so, and when she finally got it, it was just quiet. That's how I knew she understood because she was just,
Mm.
and it was just terrible. And so 3 more years takes us to 2020.
Mhm.
And so in 2020, it's COVID. And so at that time, COVID had wreaked havoc in Maryland. In fact, they had over 2,000 cases in prison. And in Marion, it was the hot spot of the world. There were no other places in the world that had more cases per capita, per space, you know, like that. And so I was in the hospital, had COVID bad, one of my lungs collapsed, I couldn't breathe. They brought in a friend of mine into the room. He died that night. They wheeled him out. They brought in another friend of mine. He died.
Oh,
They wheeled him out. I said, oh, this is it.
right,
And they didn't know what to do with so many cases. They just didn't know what to do. No one knew what to do.
right,
You know?
right.
And so they just took us and took so many guys, just put them in segregation, just locked us in the hole. You know, like lock them in there, let them die. You know, I mean, there's no treatment, there's no what you want us to do. And so I remember my wife, she was telling me that she was watching television and Mayor Cuomo, she was talking about his brother had got COVID and how he was saying that COVID wants you to literally lay down and die.
Mhm.
You have to stand, you have to keep moving. And so my wife said, you just stand up, you keep moving, you don't stop moving. I just kept hearing her voice. And so, but I couldn't move. I didn't have the strength to move. The only strength I had with great effort was to stand up and then sit back down. I would stand up and sit down. I was so exhausting, I would just fall out asleep. I would wake up a few hours later and stand up. And then I could take a one step, then I could take two, and then I was just walking, and the Lord was healing me. And I was getting stronger, and I got paperwork from the parole board. And he said, you got your parole board paper? I said, is it good news or bad news? Just tell me.
Right.
And he said, well, it depends. I said, on what? He said, if you think going home is good news, he got the paper, I opened it up, and it said that I would be going home June of 2020, June 16, 2020. And I said, oh, wow. I said, Susan, I said, I got the paperwork.
I got it right here with my name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I said, but I won't feel comfortable. I'll walk out that
Mhm.
door, you know, and so that was April. And so it was 2 months. No. I went to I was April. I went to parole board in February. I got the response in April.
Okay.
Went home in June. And so I walked out of that prison, you know, Susan had sent some clothes for me to wear home. And there was some tan Chuck Taylor tennis shoes,
Nice.
some black blue jeans, a black t-shirt that said #blessed on it. And I was so happy, you know. I walked out of the prison, I seen her there, and I said, wow. Life is getting ready to be a lot different. It's going to be a lot different. And I got released to this reentry program called Embark, Embark. And they had a transitional house in Columbus.
Okay.
So I was living there. And I experienced two things that I never thought that I would experience them. One. The second thing is I never thought that I would experience them to the degree, the intensity that I would. And the first thing that I felt was fear. I was fearful. I was afraid, and it was intense. It was intense, particularly at night going to the house. I felt unsafe. I remember the door. I said, "Look at this little door."
It's a big 3,000-pound door.
Right.
Yeah, I'm used
Yeah.
to metal.
Yeah.
Boom.
Right. Yeah.
And you know, but so I felt a fear, you know, and it was so I would at night. I would be in my bedroom with my door shut, but it was a couple of nights in my bedroom that I realized that there's a lock on my bedroom door. I didn't even realize that. But when I realized that, it felt like I discovered fire. I was so happy. I was like, it's a lock on the door. You know? And so that gave me a sense of comfort. The other thing that I felt was extremely lonely. I felt so lonely, and it was intense. And so I would call my wife and my mother. I would talk to them all throughout the night, stuff like that, because I was afraid and I was lonely, and it was intense.
Well, I can imagine. I mean, I can't really imagine, but I mean, you were gone for 30 years.
Yeah.
And then coming out and the changes just in things all around you.
Yeah.
That's one thing that would be like, whoa. I know I've talked to DeAndre a little bit about that too, you know, like when he got out and then cell phones and all that. He's like, that was probably, he said that was one of his biggest like stressors was cell phone.
Yeah.
So just different, you know, I listened to a book on Audible. I listened to, it was an Oprah, one of her recommended, and this man was innocent and he spent, I can't remember how many years in prison, 50 some years in prison, I want to say. But when he got out, his one friend would come visit him like twice a week. But when he got out and they were driving somewhere and the Siri said something, and he said, you have a white girl in your car somewhere. He's like, no, that's our GPS, but he didn't know those things.
Right.
And so I thought about that when you were talking about 30 years, I was like,
No.
so much had to change in 30 years.
Yeah.
I mean,
It was-
so you went like in 1990 then?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah. So much. And, going in the prison, you have to become institutionalized.
Sure.
You should become institutionalized so that you can survive and thrive in an institution.
Mhm.
And then getting out, you realize that you start to dismantle your institutional structures in ways that you should, but then there are some that you have to construct now a societal structure. And like you said, there's so much you're unaware of. You don't know what type of structure to make.
Sure. Yeah,
There's a different type of structure that you make from beachfront property to inner city property,
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, these two different structures.
so I can see where you would have even the fear and loneliness, because all of that would just, I feel like, just really mess with your mind, all of
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
It was
even having Susan and your mom, to talk to, but still,
you have to experience it.
yeah, cool.
And that was the great part about it, is that they're there to help you with the experience,
Mhm.
but you still have the experience.
Yeah,
And so the place that I was staying at, this transitional house, it was good and it was bad. The bad was that when Susan would come from Cleveland to Columbus to visit, she might come and stay for a week or a weekend, that she wasn't allowed to come into the house. So she would come off the highway and couldn't even use the bathroom. And so he's like, this is wrong.
Right,
This ain't
right.
my girlfriend, this ain't my baby mom,
Right.
it's my wife.
Right.
And so it was so much that that we didn't like about that we said, we have to do something about that. We have to do something different. We have a responsibility, first of all, to ourselves. You have to create what they say, the change.
Right. Sure.
You have to create it. You be the example. You demonstrate to me how it should go. And so he said, we're going to start our own reentry ministry.
Oh, okay.
We're going to begin a reentry ministry. We call it a reentry. Ever-growing ministries.
Okay.
And because you should always be in a state of growth and development.
Sure.
And that's what we tell the men and women that we minister to, that always be growing and developing, leave yourself open to learn. Because you're going to get out of here one day, and you're going to feel very alone.
Right.
You're going to feel very, very afraid,
Yeah.
because it's change. And it's changes that, that's one thing that's constant, is change.
Sure.
Things have changed since we've come into this room.
Sure.
The weather has changed. It's going to be,
Yeah, it's about to be a hot one.
yes.
Very hot.
Yeah.
And so that's big what we're doing now. So we got registered with the state of Ohio, registered with the IRS. It's a nonprofit 501c3, and got our board. Go into the prisons. We're ready to start a transition house.
Okay.
Now, and in fact, they said the biggest need is transitional housing here in Northwest Ohio.
Okay.
In Toledo, Findlay, and the whole Northwest Ohio area. And so it just happens to be where we at.
Right.
So we want to help people become who it is that God had created them to be. Each person is a gift.
Yeah.
And I think that our gift gets lost to us. I think our gifts are hidden from us, probably from those early childhood pains and traumas. I believe that your gift of who you truly are is hidden from it, and so you have to discover your gift. And I think you discover the gift by discovering you. And I think that the two get drawn together. Once you get a deeper, more profound understanding of who you are, I believe that your understanding of who you are as a gift.
Yes.
And then you start doing the things that enhances the gift of you. It's like your gift is drawn to,
Yeah,
like throwing a hammer. You
yeah,
just throw your hand up and it'll come to you.
right, right.
And so you'll just find yourself doing what it is that you do. And then
Yeah.
people you don't sell and people don't pay for your gift
Right,
because it's free.
right.
You do what you do all the time because that's just what you do, because what you do is who you are. This is what I do.
Yeah,
And so what people will pay for, what I found to be of value is your time. Your
Yeah.
time is valuable. I want you to do and be who you are right here at this time, at 3 o'clock. I
Right.
want you to be, just come over here, because if you're over here, you're gonna be doing what you do anyway.
Sure.
But at 3 o'clock, I just want you to be over here because you're gonna do it. You know, I don't have to tell you what to do, how to do it, what to do. I just want you to be you.
Right.
Would you be you for over here?
Right.
And so it's always a wonderful thing to see people come into a committed relationship with themselves.
That's good. That's good.
You got to get into a
You
loving,
do.
committed relationship with you.
Yes.
You know, and
Those
understand.
mirror talks are not any fun,
Yeah,
but they're good.
but they're good. Not any fun, but
No,
they're
right.
good. You know.
Yeah,
I think it's, and they're needed, you know, they're needed, best they could possibly do, you know. One question I like to ask people is this, are you perfect? And then of course you say, no, I'm not. I mean, so you mean to tell me that you do have some sort of fault, a flaw, a shortcoming of some sort? Yeah, I do. Okay, now this question is harder than the first one. I want you to tell me what is it?
yeah.
You know, what is your fault? What is it that makes you less than perfect? And so those are questions we got to ask ourselves. Well, it's my attitude, it's this habit, it's me not doing this consistently, it's me doing that too much. And those are the things that we have to tell ourselves, you know. In this particular situation, you know, I'm very short with people, I'm very cursed with people, and I know that this is what I do. And when you start understanding that, that's you saying, here I am on this map of where I want to be. You know,
Yeah.
I want to be there, but I have to acknowledge where I'm at first. You know, so I think that that's so vitally important.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and not be afraid, you know, of who you are, you know,
Right.
not be afraid, you know, just say, yeah, that's what I do, you know, that's what it, you know, I apologize for that, you know, as I work on,
Right,
you know.
right. And that's the thing too, that a lot of people too, and when they're working on those things and they might fail or fall, and then they stop because they're like, well, no, that didn't work. Well, you need to work on it more, you know, failing and falling is part of the process.
Yeah.
You know, so, and it's hard when you're looking at yourself and doing those shortcomings and that, and you gotta, I mean, I can point it out to other people all day long, but when I'm looking in that mirror and then I'm telling myself, I'm like, oh, but I do that too. Like I take an inventory of myself a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've learned that I need to do it daily, you know, because we all fall short, all of us, right?
Say we
You know, listen, I have tattoos all over my body. They're all affirmations for reasons, like perfectly imperfect. When you were saying that, I'm like, that's me, you know, but I think that's so powerful to do that. And I think I mean, I know it's hard for women, but I really do believe that men, it's probably harder.
Oh, yes.
Because I know when you were talking earlier a little bit, I always like to point out about mental health. And I know like men especially, and especially in your culture, I've been learning, like you said, you don't cry, you don't do that, you know, your mental health, and then you guys keep it all bottled up.
Yeah.
You know, and I feel like more and more it's starting to be talked about more, and people are actually talking about their mental health and the things that they go through, and I think that's really important, and not being shamed for it, right?
And shame.
Right, I'm like pat you on the back, like,
Yeah.
thank you
Yeah.
for, saying that, because you don't know who you can help with that. Somebody could be watching this and be like, oh, well, I do struggle with mental health, and I do need to talk about things, and I think it's important. And like you said too, talking about your past and learning from it, not living in it. You don't live in your past. You gotta, what you went through and how you got through it, and that can also help somebody else.
That's right, that's
Yeah.
right.
And the more you talk about it, it's more healing.
Yes,
Healing coming to you.
absolutely.
So, where you've been, it's not to hurt you, it's to make you. So I think just putting it out more and telling somebody else is helping them and it's helping you too. So
Yes, yes.
as you grow, you helping somebody else at the same time.
Yep. Gotta plant that seed and then just let it, and that's why I started this. Because I know that there's so many people that, like I said, feel alone, like their struggle is so, and I always say, unfortunately, we all go through struggles. Everybody goes through a struggle, but
Yes.
fortunately, some of us are able to grasp that. With me and you, it's God. I always tell people, whatever your faith is, but with me, it's God. And I grasp that, and then I share that with other people. And then sometimes, you share your story and you're like, oh, should I really have done that? And then you get that one message from somebody that says, thank you so much. Your post today or whatever you did today made me get out of bed today. And I'm like, yes, that's why you do what you do.
Yeah.
And also I've heard when you talked about the healing. So I've interviewed quite a few people that have never shared their story ever. And then when they do, they'll call me and they'll be like, thank you. And I'm like, for being on a podcast, thank you. And they're like, no, you just helped heal me. And that I think is important because people keep it all inside. And this gives people a platform to be able to just be, and so yeah, I'm so grateful that you guys came today. I didn't say at the beginning, but they're my friends now. You guys all know I say that all the time. Forever friends. My last one, Andre, this guy in South Carolina. So now once a week we send each other a message, hey friend, because I just love people, and I love helping people. And I think that, I've found my purpose and my gift. And I tell people, if you wake up in the morning, you have a pulse, you have a purpose, and think of one thing every day just to be grateful for.
Yeah.
Because somebody just said to me a few weeks ago, they were like, how are you always so happy? And I'm like, I get up in the morning and I pray and I say 3 things I'm grateful for, at least 3 things. And I can get up and do my day then, because there's so much that we can be grateful for. And they're like, oh, I wish I could do that. I'm like, are you hearing me right now? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, okay, be grateful, right? There's those little things people don't think about. You got thumbs, right?
Yeah.
Be grateful for it.
Toriano have a saying, if you wake up in the morning and it's a telltale sign
That's right.
and God has a purpose.
Yes. I agree.
I was watching this reel, and the reel was talking to this couple, and he said, how would you feel if I gave you $1 million? He said, in fact, let's make it $10 million. Would you be grateful for that? $10 million, no strings attached. This is yours. You can spend it any kind of way you want. They said, yeah, I'd be grateful.
Right.
He said, okay, it's only one thing. What if I gave you $10 million, but you wouldn't wake up the next morning? Would you still want the 10 million? He said, no, of course not. They said, so what you're telling me is that your life is more valuable than $10 million.
That's good.
They said, yeah. They said, well, why don't you live like that?
Yeah.
And then he also reminded me of a story that Pooh, DeAndre, we'll call him Pooh.
Yeah, I know. I call Coach Pooh too sometimes, but DeAndre, Coach Pooh. Yeah.
He, we were in Marion together, of course, and we were in the same dormitory.
Okay.
And that's one of my favorite stories of and in the dormitory, people always comes in and they talk about how much it stinks in there.
Right. Okay.
And it smells like a man's
Right,
humanity,
right.
And so someone will always say, man, somebody need to take a shower, they stink. And so who asked him, said, who? He said, man, them. He said, who was them? Man, I don't know one of these dudes in there. And then DeAndre said, it's us. Them is us. He said, each and every one of us adds our own little piece to the funk. He said, He says, I know who stinks. He says, we stink.
Mm,
It's us. We
Yeah.
all add to humanity.
mm,
You know, so you want to know what's wrong with humanity, ask what's wrong with me.
mm,
That's what's wrong with humanity,
mm.
is what I'm adding to
Yeah.
it, you know, so.
He's a pretty intelligent young man, isn't he?
Yeah.
He really has some powerful things. Yeah, I've met, he spoke at my night of hope, like I said, but we haven't done a one-on-one interview. We're going to do that soon because he spoke there and I was going to try to put all that, but it was so long that night. So I definitely wanted to interview him too. So I don't know if I should interview him before we're done training or after. I just messaged his mom yesterday. I'm like, I'm pretty sure your son's trying to kill me.
Yeah.
It's like, he's just really helping you get to your goals. I'm like, I know. So, yeah. So now are you working on the transitioning house then now? Is that what-
Yeah, so
Yeah.
our next step with that is, the Ohio Department of Rehabilitation and Correction has a Department of Transitional Housing.
Okay,
And Transitional Housing Department will give you a paper, detailing what their requirements are.
okay,
And once you meet those requirements, then you give your presentation back to them.
okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So, yeah,
That's good. Now, do you have a church in Finley too, or yeah?
yeah. And
Okay.
so we go to, well, we attend to a
Oh,
church.
okay.
Now. It's interesting because we just received, I got an email last week, asking us to submit a resume for a senior pastor position.
Okay.
And so we're going to meet with their search committee this Sunday, in a couple of
Okay.
days. And so we're going to meet with them. And so that's probably a church that perhaps Susan and I will pastor.
As we all know, our steps are ordered.
They are ordered.
And, I was talking to a friend of mine and she was like, Finley, where are you? I said, in the country. And I was like, I would have never put myself here,
Mhm.
but it's not about us. It's
Right.
what God has planned
Yeah.
for us.
Yeah.
So I'm realizing now that it's God's steps and He is ordering our steps.
Mhm.
So we don't know what. And I told my granddaughter, she's like, Gigi, I thought you were coming back. I said, we are coming back, but we don't know what God plans.
Right.
So we're just walking and wherever He's sending us, that's
Yeah.
where we're going.
Yeah.
So that's the plan.
And you'll know too, like, right? Because you know that feeling of
Oh,
that,
yeah.
that it's him, you know? Yeah, I'm excited.
All the way here in Finley.
All the way here in Finley.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's good.
just as long as we keep meeting, He keep putting us in the step of good people.
Yeah.
Now we met you, we have met so many people
Mhm.
in this walk. So
Yeah,
we know that it's His plan. We just don't know what
Right.
it is. But in
Right.
a minute, He's gonna open our eyes and we're gonna see everything. So
Yeah.
I believe that.
yeah, I believe that too.
Oh,
And that's
yeah.
when you just said he puts those good people in your life and that's
Mhm.
what and it continually happens.
It's
Like,
always a
it
plan and
is,
reason.
yeah. And it's funny because since I've started growing more spiritually and meeting great people, the wrong people are just kind of like fading away,
Oh,
you know,
that's
it's,
good.
you know, it's been like, I don't hear from
You
them
don't have to
anymore.
say bye
And
to
it-
them. They
no,
just
that's
wanna
right,
be-
they're just going away, because they, when you level up, they don't really like that so
Uh,
much. No, so
oh,
they might
yeah.
have to look in that mirror.
Yeah,
I know.
maybe one day they'll come back.
Maybe
Okay.
a changed person, hopefully.
Usually.
Yeah, I say that when I quit drinking, those people that I thought were my friends' friends, boy, they sure did scatter real quick when I quit
Oh, yeah.
drinking, and a lot of them would be like, wow, you don't really have a drinking problem, you drink like we do, and I'm like, yep, I do.
Yeah.
I did, so yeah, well, I'm super excited that you guys made the trip down here, and I appreciate that. Is there any last little thing you want to say to anybody?
No, but you reminded me about when you just spoke of that, about people being taken out of your life. It brought the scripture to me in Hebrews, the 12th chapter. It says that God spoke before.
Mhm.
And He's going to speak again. And this time when He speaks, it's not just the earth that'll be shaken, but it's the heavens and the earth. Until the only thing that remains is that which cannot be shaken. And so I think about when our life is stirred up, is shaken, and things seem to be falling apart, and people seem to be falling away. But it's after the shaking when things are still, when you look around and you see the things that remain and the people that are remain, the Bible says that those are the people who cannot be shaken.
That's good.
And so shaking is good
Yeah.
because shaking demonstrate to you who will and what will remain.
Yeah,
And so that's a
that's
good
good.
thing.
It's good. It's good. Any last words you'd like to say, Susan?
No, I'm just thanking God that he put you in my life and, and I'm just waiting to see what
Yeah,
else God has planned.
no, I'm sure he has a lot planned.
Oh,
Yeah, he does. So,
Yeah.
all right. Well, everyone, thank you so much for getting on Hope today. I hope, as always, you have a great day and we will talk to you soon. Stop it before-